Hey guys, hope you're all doing good. My name is Wade and I work as a developer advocate with Freshdesk. I hope you guys are enjoying and having fun with all the sessions and hopefully we help you learn something new. Today's session is about serverless apps and external events. Before starting, to be clear, the apps that are built in the previous sessions are front-end apps and the one that we'll build today is a serverless app or a backend app. A serverless app or a backend app is preferred over front-end apps in certain scenarios and vice versa. We'll see those scenarios in the later part of this session. Before starting, there are certain prerequisites, which are code labs, which can be accessed through the URL shown on my screen right now. And go to the code labs and open the fourth tutorial, Freshdesk serverless app. The next prerequisite is a GitHub account. The next one is a Freshdesk account. Next one is the latest version of FTK, Node version 10, and finally, text editor of your preference. So let's set the prerequisites aside and dive into the session. So let's start with the age-old question of what is serverless. So if you ask people around, some will say there are no servers, some will say there are servers, but you don't have to maintain the servers. For some people, it is just AWS Lambda. All of the above are correct based on their personal understanding of the term serverless. But in general, there are like wide variety of AWS serverless options available. But the one that we'll concentrate today in this session is called Function as a Service or FaaS or FaaS. To be more precise, AWS Lambda, which powers all the Freshworks serverless apps, with each function being triggered by a certain product event. So we'll go in detail about that events in few minutes. Before we get started with the event, so let's just answer a question: when do you use a serverless app over a front-end app? So let's take your previous session for reference. The session in which you guys created an app to uh, create GitHub issue for a ticket. So the app runs on the ticket page, and whenever you want to create an issue for that particular app, you go and click on a button, and issue with that particular ticket details are created in GitHub, right? So this scenario is ideal if you always create ticket in the portal manually, but that's not the case, right? Always a ticket can be created through any channel, emails, APIs, tweets, and other channels. Now it becomes tedious for the agent or the user to create issues manually for all the tickets, right? So the person cannot literally go and check how many tickets have come and then manually create an issue for all those tickets, right? So what if there is a way to create an issue in GitHub as soon as a ticket is created in Freshdesk without any user intervention or without any manual intervention? Guess what? There is a way, and that can be achieved using a serverless app, right? So you might have a question. So how a serverless app will know when to create an issue without me telling it to do, right? So in your front-end app, the user manually clicks the button that triggers the function that creates a GitHub issue, right? What in serverless app, when a ticket is created, the product itself will emit a event. In this scenario, an event called onTicketCreate. So the onTicketCreate event will trigger a function, so in which you would have written a logic to create a GitHub issue, and when the function executes, your issue will be created in GitHub. So this particular function will be triggered whenever there is whenever there is a ticket created in Freshdesk, regardless of the method in which it is created, right? So onTicketCreate is not the only event that is available. So the events in Freshdesk or in Freshworks products are classified into 4 sets. So which are as follows: app setup events, product events, external events, and scheduled events. So app setup events, as the name suggests, so these are the events that are triggered when the app is set up or uninstalled. So there are only two events. The first one is on app install, and the second one is on app uninstall. The names are pretty self-explanatory. So the second one is uh, product events. On ticket create is one of the product events. So there are list of product events which you guys can get it from our developer documentation. Please visit developer.freshdesk.com and then go to serverless section. On the serverless section, you guys will find product event section in which you can know about all the product events for Freshdesk. So this is the same for all the other products as well. I mean, this is the method to get product list of product events for all the other products as well. And then there are like external events. So external events are uh, even that. Okay, so external events are nothing but it acts as a bridge between two parties through a mechanism called webhooks. So whenever there is a change uh, in an external uh, application, that can be notified, that can notify its change to Freshdesk or any other Freshworks product through a URL called webhook, and your Freshworks app will capture that particular event, and then it will process it. So that event is called an external event. And then there is scheduled events. Scheduled events is nothing but uh, a, a scheduler that runs in your that resides in your app. So you can run a one time or a recurring scheduler. The thing is, you can only run one recurring scheduler at any given point in time. So that is the only restriction you have in scheduled events. Scheduled event, you can call scheduled events lightweight cron for your app. So there that is. So let's see what we're going to build today. So we've already seen an example in which you create an app and see an example of an app which creates a GitHub issue when a ticket is created in Freshdesk, right? So that is the app that we're going to build today. So if you look at it, so this is a flow diagram. So when the app is installed in Freshdesk, it has to register a webhook. So webhook is nothing but a communication mechanism between two particular platforms, which we'll see it later. At this point, remember webhook is like a communication channel between you and your postman. Uh, your postman will always give you a letter whenever there is a new letter, and you will tell him if you go to address, you start residing in an address, and you will tell him when you vacate from that address. So consider this as an example, an analogy rather. Uh, and then your postman will keep on delivering letters as and when you receive a letter, only if you receive a letter, right? So that is what a webhook also does, right? And then it registers a webhook through GitHub, and then after that, whenever there is an issue created in Freshdesk, it creates an issue in GitHub. So this particular feature is achieved using a REST API Postcall. So there is a GitHub endpoint to create issues. So we'll use that endpoint to make a post request and create an issue. So now once an issue is created, so and what if that issue is resolved? So and I close that issue in GitHub. So now I have to intimate Freshdesk that this particular issue is resolved, so we can close the ticket, right? So how this can be achieved? So we already have a connection between GitHub and Freshdesk through a mechanism called webhook, right? So through a webhook, I'll send a event saying that this issue has been closed. Do the needful, right? So that is exactly what my external event handler will capture that particular uh, event from GitHub, and it will process it, and it will do whatever it has to do. Uh, issue edit also works the same, and issue delete also works exactly the same. So then comes the webbook deregister. So now I am going to uninstall the app. So I don't need the communication between my Freshdesk app and the GitHub repository, right? So what will I do at this point? So what you'll do is like you will deregister the webbook so that there is no channel of communication between your Freshdesk app and your GitHub anymore, right? So before building this particular app, let's see a demo of this app, right? I have already installed the final version of this particular app, a sample app for coders, and I've connected it to a repository, this particular repository. So let's see and try to create an issue in GitHub from a ticket. I'm going to create a new ticket. A sample ticket that is not supposed to go there. It's supposed to be my contact. Sorry for that. Okay. A sample ticket. Status open, priority low. Description. And then I'm going to create a ticket. So let's see if an issue is created in GitHub, right? Let's refresh the page. Yes, we got a ticket, issue in GitHub. So consider this issue is resolved, right? So let me close this issue. So this would have communicated my change to Freshdesk through a webbook. So fingers crossed. Let's hope that this issue is closed. Yes, it is closed. So that is what the app does, right? So if you guys want to see the webbook that is registered by this particular app, you can go to settings on this particular repository, go to webhooks, and these are the two active webhooks right now. So let us see when is the last delivery there. 252. So yes. So this is the last one that is sent. So it sends a payload saying that these are all the details about this particular issue. So do whatever you want to do with this particular thing. So this is the payload that your GitHub sends to the Freshdesk, right? So what Freshdesk does is it takes the payload, it looks for what happened in that particular issue, and then it updates the details based on that particular data, right? So now the issue is closed. We have communication between two repositories. I mean, Freshdesk and your GitHub repository. And now let's see how we build this from ground up, right? Let's start with that. Let's go to step number 4. Clone the sample app repository, navigate to the directory. So I've already cloned and opened this particular folder in my text editor. So here it is. Let's go through the code that we have here. So we have app folder. We won't be needing this particular folder for this session. And then we have a config folder in which you have iparams.json, which defines all your iparams. In this case, we have two iparams, GitHub repository name and Freshdesk API key. And then we have OAuth configuration, which is used to authorize your GitHub app for this particular Freshdesk app. So I've configured my client ID and my client secret for this session. So I'll reset the tokens once the session is done. And then server folder. Inside server folder, we have test data. Inside test data, we have a bunch of JSON files. So we'll get back to that in a second. Then we have server.js file. So this is where you will write all your app logic. So here we have an events array. So events array is nothing but events array consists of uh, events array is an array of objects. So each object will give you a mapping between event and callback associated with it, or a function associated with that particular event. So in this case, external event is associated with this on external event handler. So whenever on external event is triggered, this particular callback will be invoked, and the function will be executed, and whatever that is happening inside the function happens, right? So coming back to test data. So we have on app install JSON and on app uninstall JSON. We have a bunch of these JSONs. So why do you need this JSON, right? So the thing is, in a front end app, you will actually go to the browser and append !dev=root to run the app, and then test the app in browser itself, in your portal itself, right? So but in this scenario, there is no communication with the product itself. So we are assuming that the event will be invoked. I mean, we invoke this event manually, assuming that this will be the data from the event, and then we write the function for it, right? So why do we do that? Because in terms of your front end app, everything is scoped to your local host and your browser. But in terms of a serverless app, the event has to come from server. At this point, there is no connection between your FTK and server. So that is the reason we have to assume an event and then invoke it manually. So in order to invoke that, we use these JSON files as payloads, right? Maybe we can see an example of that. FTK run. So let it run. So it's going to take a second. So let's see what is in manifest.json file. So manifest.json file is the entry path to your app itself. So it has like all your app definition or metadata, is going to call that, and a readme file which tells you about the app, and taking longer than it's supposed to. Just give it a second. Yes, you got it. So let's go to custom configs first. And we go to the installation page and give all the details. It asks for my GitHub repository name, so I'm going to give that. So this is a sample repository that I'm using for this session. Let me copy the repository details. Paste it. Okay. And then the API key. So API key for your Freshdesk instance can be found in your profile settings. Again, I am exposing my API key for the sake of session, and I'll reset it once it is done. So please do not do this in a public forum. Done. Install. And we're done. And we'll simulate the events. So now I have a drop down in the list of events, right? So let's consider when I click on ticket create, it is assumed that it is an equivalent of on ticket create event fired by the product, right? So this is a sample payload which the product will send. So we are also mocking this, all right? So this is what your ideal scenario will look like. So now let's go back to the tutorial and proceed with the following step. So we have done this. Going to the next step. So now let's create an issue, right? So the first step is add the following object into events array. So like I already said, we are just mapping on ticket create. Let's go to server.js file. Go to the events array. On ticket create. So like I already said, we are just mapping on ticket create event to this particular handler. So now we mapped it, but we don't have the on ticket create event handler yet. So let me go back and copy the on ticket create handler as well. Copy it, paste it under the placeholder on ticket create. Okay, so now we have paste on ticket create handler. So when I invoke this particular handler, it should create a issue in my GitHub repository. So first, before starting that, let me go to my GitHub repository and check if I have any issues. I have a first task issue. Let me close this issue. Okay, and refresh the page. Okay, coming back to our test simulation, let's refresh it. Okay, I did not start the server yet, so let's start the server. Let's go to localhost 10,001/web/test page. So to invoke an event, so now I am going to invoke on ticket create event with this particular payload. So let's hope it creates a ticket in GitHub. I mean, let's hope it creates a GitHub simulate with success. So let me go to GitHub and check if the issue is created. Fingers crossed. We got it, right? So I created the issue from Freshdesk. So now let's go to the next step. Okay, so it says add the following helper at line 9 to save mapping data of ticket and GitHub issue in data storage. So what does it mean? So at this point we've created a issue for a particular ticket, but we don't have a data to close this particular ticket. By that I mean, okay, so when it comes time to close this particular issue, I have no idea which ticket to close, right? Let's go back to on ticket create handler and check the code. Close it. Okay, so in the on ticket create handler, as soon as this handler is invoked, I am making a post request to the GitHub endpoint, issues endpoint, to create a ticket, right? So what am I doing? So my body or my payload is title, which I am getting the ticket subject, and body, which is my description text of a ticket, and then I'm giving a label bug to the ticket, right? But in this case, there is no unique identifier for a ticket, right? So, but two tickets can have same subject or same description text, right? But we don't exactly know which ticket have, I mean, for which ticket this issue is created. So for that reason, as soon as the post request is successful, GitHub sends me a payload of the issue, right? So payload with the details of the issue. So from that payload, I can get my issue ID and issue number. So I save it in my local storage or data storage to create a mapping between my ticket and my GitHub issue, so that whenever an event is triggered from GitHub to close the ticket, I know which ticket to close. So that is the reason why we use this save mapping helper method So let's go back and copy this thing. Let's copy VS Code, line number 9. Okay, we are done. So let's move to the next step. We've already tested this. We've already invoked the event and tested that and issues created in GitHub. So let's proceed to the next step. So register a webhook. So like I've already told, webhook is like a postman between two parties. It acts like a postman, right? So we have created an issue from Freshdesk in GitHub. So at this point, there is a ticket and there is a issue, right? So what if that issue is closed? I have to tell Freshdesk somehow that this issue is closed, so you can close the ticket, right? So that should be the case. How do I achieve that? So I achieve that using webhooks. Okay. So let's see what webhooks are. So webhook. Okay. So webhook is unique to an app. So a webhook is generated when the app is installed, right? So let's see how it's done. So let's just copy these two event objects into our code. Okay, I accidentally Control C again. Copy. Come on. Paste. So I have on app install and on app uninstall events and handlers to be associated with those events, right? So let me go back to the tutorial and copy the handlers associated with that function to that event. Hold on a second. Let me copy that. Let's go back to the code. Find a placeholder for on app install. Paste it. So let's go through what is in on app install, right? So whenever the app is installed, so there is a function called generate target URL, which will generate a URL through which your app can be accessed, right? So this is what GitHub needs. So GitHub needs this URL for it to communicate with your Freshdesk platform or like your app itself. So how do we send it to GitHub? So that is why we make this particular post call to your GitHub repos hooks endpoint. So what it does is it creates a new hook uh, for which the value will be the target URL generated by your Freshdesk platform, right? And then, so this is the tricky part. So once that hook is succeeded, right, what exactly happens is this like the communication. What exactly happens is the communication channel between your uh, Freshdesk app and your GitHub repository is open, right? Uh, okay, so when you uninstall the app, you should deregister the webbook, right? Because when you uninstall the app, there is no need for the communication between two channels. So it is advised to uninstall the deregister the webbook. But how do you do it? So this URL is generated, and there is no way that you know what is the URL once it is generated, right? So you generate it and then you post it to GitHub, and then you don't know what it is. When there is a time when it comes the time to deregister the webbook, you don't know what that webbook is, right? So you might have multiple apps and you might have multiple webhooks. So you don't know which webbook to deregister, right? So that is why we store the webbook URL in data storage, so that when there is a need to deregister the webbook, so we deregister it using a particular key, and then fetch it and then register it and delete it from the data store, right? So that is what is done here in line 104. So we are setting GitHub Webbook ID key as a key, and then the URL that is generated from this particular generate target URL function as the object, and then when it's time, so yes, that is it. We set it in the database data store, and then we move forward, right? Let's save the code. Let's go to on and install handler. So let's copy this. Go to VS Code, paste it in the placeholder. Let's paste it. Let's indent it a little bit. Let's save it. So what it does in on app install is it fetches on app uninstall is that it fetches the uh, webhook that we have stored in our data store, uh, and it takes the value and deregisters it, so that like there is no channel of communication between two parties once the app is uninstalled. So that is what that logic is handled in on app uninstall handler. So we've set up app install and uninstall handlers. So let's test this out. Control C, FTK run. So now we'll run into an error, right? I hope we run into an error. So that error is something like this. So if I try to test this particular event in this scenario on app install event, I'm going to run on app install event, and it will fail. The reason being is I am trying to run my local host and trying to register that particular webhook, right? So if you see generate target URL, it will start with a local host. But when I try to register that particular URL as a webhook to my GitHub repository, it will say that localhost is not secure. Localhost is not a unique URL, so I cannot accept it. So what do? So we use a mechanism called tunneling, right? So let's start our server using ftk run space -t. So what it exactly does is, so it takes your local host, right? And then it tunnels it through another HTTPS tunnel and gives you and masks and gives you a URL which is accessible over internet. In this case, it will be HTTPS, so on, so on, so on, right? So there is a npm package for this separately as well, called ngrok or ngrok, whichever way you want to pronounce it. But this comes as a part of FTK. You can just use -t flag to start it in tunnel mode. So let's check this now. Let's refresh the page. Hope it works. On app install, simulate, success. So let us check if we have created a webhook in GitHub. So let's go to our GitHub repository. So your webhooks can be found in your repository, settings, webhooks, and okay, so there are a lot of webhooks. So let us figure out if our webhook is created. So let's go back to the code and check what is the URL that we have, https ec something. So let's copy this. So let us copy this. So you can see a webhook created for our tunnel URL. So this acts as a communication channel between your Freshdesk and your GitHub. So what happens is whenever there's a in the parentheses you can see issues, right? So whatever changes happen in this repository with respect to issues, uh, your GitHub your GitHub repository will make a post call to this particular endpoint, and then your Freshdesk app captures it. So how it captures it is something that we'll see in the next step. So for now, we have created a ticket in GitHub. I mean, created an issue for a ticket in GitHub, and then we have created a webhook in GitHub. So let's see. So that is what it is demonstrated in this GIF below. So let's go to the next step. So close the ticket when an issue is closed. So how do we do that? I have no clue. So let's follow the tutorial and see how do we do that. So add the following thing in the event handler. So let's go to the VS Code and check what we already have. So another thing you should note about tunnel is that when you close the server and then restart it again, your tunnel URL changes. So for example, I've restarted the server twice now. So the first time when I started using tunnel, my URL is something that starts with E83, and the next time it starts with 887A, and the next time it starts with E179. So when you run test, you have to make sure that you run the on app install event again, so that a proper webhook is registered for this particular instance of the app. So if I try to send a request to my old, so now I restarted it and this particular tunnel URL is changed now. So but if I try to make a request to this particular webhook, it will not work. So if I try to redeliver, it will fail because that URL is not active anymore, right? So make sure. So let's go to Webbooks. So let's delete this. So now let's register the webhook again freshly for the current instance. Let's refresh the simulation page. Let's select on app install event. Let's simulate it. Okay, let's see if a new webhook is created. Refresh the webhooks page. A new webhook is created now. But let's also verify if it is for the current instance of the app that is running. So it starts with E179. So let's see if that is the case. E179. Okay, so we have created a new webhook and it's active. Okay, so now let's test external events. So let's copy this particular event object and then paste it in our code. Let me close the terminal. Go to the events array. Okay, so we already have external event definition and external event handler in the code boilerplate that is already, that is given to you. The reason is because in order for your webhook to register, it needs an external event handler to be present in the server.js file. So if you remove your external event, if there is no external event handler in your, so for example, okay, so let me complete it. So if there is no external event handler in your server.js file, your webhook registration will fail, right? For instance, let me comment this on external event handler, and then let me remove external event from the event definition. Let me save it. So since we already received the webhook, let's close the server, open it again, restart it again. A new connection is started. Let me register another webhook. select an event on app install, simulate. So the webbook registration fails. The reason is your app will not try to register a webbook unless and until there is an external event, right? So that is the reason an external event is already given to you in the boilerplate. So let's uncomment all the changes that we made. So I've uncommented the external event handler and the event definition. Let's save it. So what's happening in the external event, right? So what external event handler does is, so at this point, let's check what is our current ngrok URL. So there are no ngrok URLs. Let's restart the tunnel again. And let me register another webhook. So this is kind of a tedious process. Like every time you have to make sure that proper webhook is registered. So it's success. Let me again check if I have the current webhook in my webbooks area. I do now. So the current one is 967C. Let me just verify it again. 967C. Yes. Okay. So now let's see what is in the external event handler. So external event handler is triggered when there is a post call made to your generate target, generate target URL, right? So I mean the URL that is generated through generate target URL. So the one that is registered in your GitHub repository, right? So in our scenario, that URL will be this. So this is the URL that is that was generated by your Freshdesk app to accept incoming communication, right? So now you have this URL, and then so the external event handler is triggered whenever there's a post request is made to this particular endpoint or to this particular URL, if you want to call that. Okay. So what external event handler does is it also, okay, so whenever the post call is made, there is also a payload associated with that event, right? So so this is the payload. So in our scenario, if we expand it, go to that event. So when making the post request to this particular URL, it sends this particular payload, right? So it sends all the details associated with that issue or like with that particular event, if it is any other event, right? So it gives you every detail that is associated with that event. So in our case, we are trying to capture a issue close event, right? So what we do is we get the payload, we check if the payload.action is closed. So let us try to trigger an external event. Rather, let's just try to trigger the event directly from GitHub, right? So let's try to close an issue in GitHub. So there is an issue. First task. Let me close this issue, and it is closed. Let me go back to Webhooks. Check if our Webbook delivered something to. Oh, it did. So it delivered a post request to our endpoint with this payload. So with this payload being an event that is associated with the issue. So that action that is done on that particular issue is closed, and the issue object is this, right? So what our external event handler does is it captures that particular payload and it processes it, right? So what it does is it checks if the issue is closed, and then it uses a helper method lookup ticket to check if that issues already exist in our data store. We've already mentioned that mapping, right? So the data saved is the same mapping method. We'll check if it exists using the lookup ticket ID, and then if it exists, we'll make a post request to your Freshdesk API and then close the issue. So we set the status to 5. Okay, so the status 5 code. So this particular post request closes the issue in Freshdesk, closes the ticket in Freshdesk if the issue is closed in GitHub. So, but how do I close the issue, right? So what is that I should what is the payload that I should send in the post request to my Freshdesk API to close the ticket? So that you might have that question. So let's go to developer.freshdesk.com. Let's go to core APIs and let's go to core APIs. Let's look for ticket fields and let's search for status. Okay, so if you see here in the ticket properties thing, so when the status value is 2, the ticket is open, and when the status value is 5, the ticket is closed. So that is the payload that we are trying to send from our app. So when you make a post call to our API, Freshdesk API, what it does is with the payload as status 5, it changes the status of the ticket to closed. So in localhost, it will not close because there is no actual ticket. Even in the data store, we just have reference between two keys. First one being your ticket ID and the second one being your issue number. We don't have actual ticket values here, so we cannot close it here. So that is what I showed earlier in the demo, that whenever a ticket is whenever an issue is closed in GitHub, it is always closed in the corresponding ticket is closed in your Freshdesk account. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to see this because the reason being is we don't exactly have a ticket here. So that is the reason. So this is done. So this is what it does. So this is what your app does. So let us see if there is anything that we missed in the tutorial. Let's go back to the tutorial on event handler. So we're ready to test the app. So we've been testing it all along, and yes, like I guess we are done. We've tested all the parts. So probably what you can build on top of this is, so for example, this app only does a certain thing, right? So consider this as an extension of this particular app. So probably you can build on top of this app. So the current app's feature is something like this. So whenever a ticket is created, an issue is created in GitHub, right? And you're trying to close the same issue from using a webbook from GitHub. So consider the scenario, try to extend this particular app. So what if I have to create a ticket whenever there is an issue created, right? So what you will do is, you guys will check for the action open, action new or something like that created. Please check GitHub API for what exactly is the action for new issues create whenever a new issue is created, right? So capture that particular action in your external event handler, and then instead of making a put request, uh, make an actual post request with the issue details and create a new ticket, so that like you can either create a ticket from GitHub issue, or you can create a GitHub issue from a Freshdesk ticket. So you can do that. So this app handles only whenever a ticket is closed, whenever a issue is closed, the ticket is closed in Freshdesk. So that is the only scenario that is handled by this app. So probably what you guys can also do is, whenever issue is reopened in GitHub, for example, there are issues. Let's There are 22 closed issues. What if I have to reopen a sample ticket? What if I have to reopen a issue? So at this point, what your external event handler does is it checks if the ticket is closed, if the issue is closed, and then it will process all these things. Uh, if it doesn't, so if it is something else, if the action is something else like reopen or something like that, uh, it will just ignore it, saying that that action is not defined. So probably what you can do is you can define that action. So you can check for the payload data dot action as something like, let's check the webbook what exactly is. Let's go to the webbook, and then what is the reason thing that I was telling about. So I guess it will be for a reopen. Check the action if it is reopened, and then try to reopen the ticket in Freshdesk. So that is another use case that you can integrate with this particular app. So the possibilities are endless when you're trying to use a serverless app. So let's try to extend this app, and I believe that is all for the session today. So one thing that is not covered in this session is so all the not this particular session, all the sessions that you guys had until now are mostly focused on Freshdesk, I believe. So if you guys prefer to create an app for Fresh service or Fresh sales, so all the apps that runs on Freshworks platform are almost similar. So only change that you guys might have to make is that your app, you guys should be able to do this by yourself. So the things that you guys have to change is change your product, go to the product documentation. For example, if you guys wanted to check, if you guys wanted to create a app for Fresh service, Fresh service, go to Fresh service documentation and check what are the applications that the product supports. Give a valid application in the manifest JSON file, and then you should be good to go. So all the other features are common across all the products or all the product apps. For serverless apps, it is just that you have to define the product. There is no location for serverless app. So serverless app runs in background and it is triggered on the event. So you don't have to worry about it. You just have to give a right product for your serverless apps. So this is also something, probably you guys can also change this particular app to a Fresh service app. So that is also something that you can explore. Like I already mentioned, the possibilities are endless. So yes, so that is all for the session today, guys. Hope you have a great day. Bye.